A dense fog clung to the small town of Hollowbrook like a shroud, suffocating every breath of life that dared venture into the murky streets. The town was quaint, with its old-fashioned lampposts and cobblestone roads, but there was something off about it, something that whispered in the cold wind. Martha and Gerald Thompson had lived in the town longer than anyone could remember. Their home was a sprawling Victorian mansion on the outskirts, perched on a hill that overlooked the rest of Hollowbrook like a sentinel. The Thompsons were well known, but not well liked. They were an odd pair, Martha, with her hunched back and creaking joints, and Gerald, with his ever-present scowl and cane. The townsfolk often speculated about their strange habits, the way they avoided company, and how they seemed to thrive in the shadows. But no one dared speak ill of them, at least not openly. There was a lingering fear, a superstition, that speaking against the Thompsons might bring misfortune. One particularly chilly autumn evening, a group of teenagers huddled in the town's only diner. The usual banter and laughter filled the air, but the fog outside seemed to muffle it, making everything feel eerily distant. "Where are we gonna go tonight?" asked Tom, the group's ringleader. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a grin that made the girls giggle. "I'm sick of hanging out in the park," muttered Jess, pulling her jacket tighter around herself. "It's too cold, and it's way too creepy at night." "What about the old Thompson place?" suggested Mark, a skinny kid with a nervous laugh. "I heard they're never home at night. We could sneak in, have the whole place to ourselves." The group went silent. The Thompson mansion was a subject of many rumors. Some said it was haunted, others whispered about strange noises in the dead of night. But Tom's grin only widened. "Perfect," he said, a little thrilled to go with the party. "We'll head there around midnight. Who's in?" Reluctantly they all agreed, lured by the promise of excitement and the chance to break the monotony of their small-town lives. Midnight came swiftly, the fog thickening as the teenagers made their way to the Thompson mansion. The house loomed before them, its windows like hollow eyes staring into the night. The gate creaked as they pushed it open, the sound echoing in the stillness. "This is a bad idea," whispered Jess, clutching Tom's arm. But he just chuckled and led the way up the winding path to the front door. As they stepped onto the porch, the old wood groaned under their weight. Tom reached for the door handle, expecting it to be locked, but to his surprise, it swung open with a low, mournful creak. "See? Easy," he said, stepping inside. The others followed, though unease prickled at the back of their necks. The air inside was cold, and the house seemed unnaturally still. The only sound was the faint ticking of a clock somewhere deep within the mansion. "Let's find a good room to set up in," said Tom, trying to shake off the growing sense of dread. They wandered through the house, the dim light from their phones casting long shadows on the walls. Dust-covered furniture filled the rooms, and cobwebs hung like curtains in the corners. The house felt like it had been frozen in time, untouched for decades. As they moved deeper into the mansion, they began to hear faint noises, scratching sounds, the creak of floorboards, as if the house itself was alive. But whenever they paused to listen, the sounds would stop, leaving only the oppressive silence. In one room, they found an old gramophone. Tom couldn't resist winding it up, and soon, the eerie strains of an old waltz filled the air. It was hauntingly beautiful, yet something about it set their nerves on edge. "This place gives me the creeps," said Jess, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's just go back to the diner." "Come on, we just got here," Tom replied, though his bravado was beginning to waver. As they explored further, they came across a grand staircase that led to the upper floors. Tom was the first to ascend, the others following reluctantly. The stairs creaked under their feet, the sound amplified in the stillness. At the top, they found a long hallway lined with closed doors. The air was colder here, and the scratching sounds were louder, more insistent. Tom motioned for the group to follow him as he approached the nearest door. He turned the knob slowly, and the door creaked open to reveal a large bedroom. The bed was made, though the sheets were old and yellowed with age. A large wardrobe stood against one wall, its doors slightly ajar. Tom stepped inside, followed by the others. As they looked around, the sense of unease grew. Something wasn't right. Suddenly the wardrobe door creaked open wider, revealing a dark space within. Tom approached it cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached out and pulled the door open fully. Inside, hanging from hooks, were dozens of what looked like leather garments. But as the light from Tom's phone illuminated them, he realized with horror that they weren't leather at all. They were skins, human skins, carefully peeled and preserved. "Jesus Christ," gasped Mark, stumbling back. The others stood frozen, their minds struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. Then, from the darkness of the wardrobe, a hand shot out, grabbing Tom by the wrist. He screamed, trying to pull away, but the grip was iron tight. From the shadows stepped Gerald Thompson, his face twisted into a grotesque smile. His skin, or what remained of it, was thin and stretched, barely clinging to the bone beneath. His eyes were wild, filled with a madness that sent chills down the spines of the teenagers. "Welcome to our home," he rasped, his voice like dry leaves scraping together. Before they could react, Martha emerged from the shadows, her face even more horrifying than Gerald's. Her skin, too, was stretched and wrinkled, but parts of it were fresh, smooth, a stark contrast to the rest. It was as if pieces of someone else's skin had been crudely sewn onto her face. "Such lovely young skin," she crooned, reaching out to touch Jess's cheek. "So soft, so full of life." Tom yanked his hand free from Gerald's grasp, shoving the old man back. "Run!" he yelled, but as they turned to flee, the door slammed shut behind them. "You shouldn't have come here," Gerald said, his smile widening to reveal yellowed teeth. "We don't get many visitors." Martha cackled, the sound echoing through the room. "But when we do, we make sure they stay." Panic set in as the teenagers realized they were trapped. Tom lunged at the door, trying to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. The old couple moved closer, their movements slow but deliberate, like predators savoring the fear of their prey. Mark grabbed a lamp from a nearby table and swung it at Gerald, but the old man dodged it with surprising agility. Gerald laughed, a low guttural sound that sent shivers down their spines. "We've lived a long time," he said, advancing on Mark. "And it's all thanks to kids like you." Martha's hands closed around Jess's arm, her grip icy cold. Jess screamed, struggling to break free, but Martha's strength was unnatural. "Don't worry, dear," she whispered. "You'll be part of something much bigger." In a last-ditch effort, Tom grabbed a chair and smashed it against the window, but the glass didn't break. It was as if the house itself was conspiring against glass didn't break. It was as if the house itself was conspiring against them, trapping them within its walls. "Please, let us go," Jess cried, tears streaming down her face. But the Thompsons only laughed, their twisted faces devoid of any mercy. "You came to us," Martha said. "Now, you belong to us." Suddenly the door burst open, and a gust of cold wind blew through the room, extinguishing the lights. In the darkness, the sounds of struggle and screams filled the air, mingling with the horrific laughter of the Thompsons. When the lights flickered back on, the room was empty. The wardrobe door swung gently on its hinges, revealing nothing but darkness within. Days later, the town of Hollowbrook was abuzz with rumors. The teenagers had vanished without a trace, their disappearance the latest in a string of strange occurrences that had plagued the town for decades. The police searched the Thompson mansion but found nothing unusual, just an old empty house, long abandoned. But the townsfolk knew better. They whispered among themselves, casting uneasy glances at the mansion on the hill. And though no one dared speak it aloud, They all shared the same fear, that the Thompsons were still there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their next visitors. For Martha and Gerald Thompson, age was just a number. After all, they had plenty of time, and the town had plenty of young skin. In the dead of night, when the fog was thickest, some claimed they could hear the faint strains of an old waltz drifting down from the mansion. Others swore they saw shadowy figures moving in the windows. But no one ever dared to go near the house, not after what happened. Because everyone in Hollowbrook knew the truth. The Thompsons never left, and they never would. As long as there were children in the town, they would always have what they needed to stay young. And so, the mansion stood, a silent sentinel overlooking the town, its secrets buried deep within its walls, waiting for the next group of unwitting visitors to arrive.